They called it a curse, an old, rotting farmhouse passed to a struggling single mother and her twin daughters like a cruel joke. But fate has a twisted sense of humor, and sometimes the most broken places hide the most beautiful secrets. Before we unfold this powerful journey of courage, heartbreak, and a $120 million discovery, make sure to like, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe for more stories that remind us miracles often come in disguise. The moving truck rattled up the dirt road, groaning under the weight of secondhand furniture and cardboard boxes held together by hope and duct tape. Rain fell softly, blurring the horizon, as 34-year-old single mom Mira Dalton gripped the steering wheel tighter, blinking away both exhaustion and doubt. Her 7-year-old twin girls, Lila and June, sat in the back seat, silent but wide-eyed, their innocence still unbroken by the harsh jokes whispered by neighbors or the cruel laughter from distant relatives. The farmhouse appeared through the trees like a ghost from another life. Peeling paint, tilted chimney, porch steps swallowed by weeds. It didn't look like an inheritance. It looked like punishment, the kind of place people use for ghost stories. "Mom, is this really ours?" June whispered, her nose pressed against the window. Mira forced a smile. "Yes, baby, all ours." But the truth echoed like an empty hallway inside her chest. Her estranged uncles will had passed the crumbling property to her, with no explanation. The lawyer's words still rang in her ears. "It's all yours now, debts and all." As they stepped inside, the wooden floor creaked under their feet, like a groan of protest. Cobwebs clung to corners. Dust floated in thick rays of light slicing through broken window panes. Lila held her mother's hand tightly, while June wandered toward a door tucked beneath the staircase, an old cellar, sealed with rusted chains. Mira was too tired to stop her, too worn down to fight the feeling of failure creeping in. She had spent years juggling 2 part-time jobs, scraping by after her husband disappeared from their lives without warning. This house was supposed to be their fresh start. Instead, it felt like the final joke. But Lila ran back, clutching something, a strange, jagged metal piece, like part of a gear. "There's stuff down there, Mom," she said. "It looks like machines." "Machines?" Mira frowned, distracted. That night, they huddled together under old blankets in the one room that didn't leak. Thunder rolled outside, but inside, something had shifted. The girls whispered about treasure, mysteries, and adventures waiting beneath their new home. And for the first time in months, Mira let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe this wasn't a curse. Maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something extraordinary. Sometimes healing begins in the quiet, through laughter echoing off broken walls, through the smell of warm bread baking where silence once lived. As Mira and her daughters began restoring the house, they uncovered more than dust and decay. They uncovered pieces of themselves. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit like, leave a comment for the twins, and subscribe for more stories where forgotten places shine again. Days passed slowly, like thick honey dripping through time. The farmhouse, though worn and weathered, began to breathe again. Mira swept years of dust into sunlight, while the twins made games out of peeling wallpaper and uncovering old, hidden cabinets. Each morning, they worked together, Mira repairing broken shutters while Lila and June cleaned old furniture with rags and laughter. In the evenings, they'd gather around a makeshift table in the kitchen and eat simple meals lit by flickering lanterns. There was no TV, no internet, but something better was blooming: togetherness. One afternoon, June came running in with mud-covered hands. "Mom, there's something under the barn floor. Lila says it's metal." Mira, wiping flour from her hands, followed her daughters out. The barn was crooked and sinking, its roof patched with mismatched tin sheets. But in its center, beneath a warped wooden plank, they found it, a strange metallic panel with symbols etched into it. Mira ran her fingers over the lines, cold and unfamiliar. It looked like something out of a movie. Too clean, too deliberate. "Maybe it's a bunker," Lila whispered. "Or treasure," June said. "Or an old boiler," Mira added, trying to stay grounded, but her voice lacked conviction. That night, after the girls fell asleep, Mira sat by the fireplace holding the metal gear June had found in the cellar. It shimmered strangely under the firelight, unlike any material she'd seen before. Not rusted, not heavy, almost humming. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "What the hell did we inherit?" Still, despite the mystery, the farmhouse no longer felt like a burden. It felt alive, not because of what it might be hiding, but because for the first time in years, Mira felt needed in a way that wasn't desperate. She was building something with her daughters, not just for them. The next morning, they painted the porch railing a soft green. Lila suggested planting sunflowers by the entrance. June drew their family flag and hung it on the barn door, a crooked heart with 3 stick figures holding hands under a sun. The farmhouse still moaned in the wind, and the walls still whispered with the past. But laughter now echoed in the hallways, and that mattered more than paint or polish. The deeper they dug into the ground, into the past, into themselves, the stronger their bond grew. Something was coming. Mira could feel it. Something massive. But for now, in that fragile calm before the storm, they were just a family rebuilding hope. One brick, one smile, one secret at a time. The truth doesn't always knock. Sometimes it waits in silence, hidden beneath floorboards and time, until curious hands and innocent hearts set it free. And when secrets buried in dirt begin to breathe, nothing remains the same, not even the people who uncover them. It started with a humming, faint at first, barely a vibration, in the floor beneath their beds. Mira thought it was her imagination, the kind of thing a tired mind invents. But on the 4th night, Lila woke her, whispering, "It's coming from under us." The girls had already named it the pulse. And now Mira could hear it too, a low, rhythmic thrum, like the heartbeat of something enormous lying dormant under the earth. They followed the sound back to the cellar door, still chained, still rusted shut. But this time, Mira didn't stop June when she pointed to the key ring hanging in the kitchen. One of the old brass keys had the same circular pattern etched into it as the gear they found. It slid into the lock like it belonged there. The chains clattered to the ground. The door creaked open. A wave of cold air rushed up, heavy with the smell of iron and stone. The narrow stairs led down to a vast underground space, much larger than the house itself. The ceiling archways that defied normal structure, and the walls pulsed faintly with soft, indigo light. "This isn't a cellar," Mira whispered. "It's a vault." The girls moved ahead, their tiny footsteps echoing as they stepped onto a metallic floor that shimmered with shifting light. Dozens of sealed crates and strange pods lined the walls. One had burst open, revealing a crystalline tablet floating silently in a magnetic field. Lila touched it. The tablet flared to life, displaying a map of constellations Mira had never seen. A voice, calm, synthetic, and undeniably not human, filled the room. Vault 7 of the Ether Seed Program, unlocked by genetic resonance. Welcome, Airline Dalton. Mira froze. Airline. The map zoomed into Earth, then to their property, before displaying a sequence of events dating back decades. Ship crash. Recovery protocols. Hidden technology. A directive. Do not engage until next of blood accesses core. "This can't be real," Mira muttered, heart pounding. But it was. Somehow, her family had been tied to something extraterrestrial. Her uncle hadn't left her a broken house. He'd hidden a galactic secret beneath it. And her daughters, they had activated it. "Mom," June whispered, eyes wide, "are we aliens?" Mira shook her head slowly. "No, baby. But maybe we were chosen." They left the vault in silence. None of them spoke as they sealed the door again. But their world had changed. And something was waiting, something that had been asleep for years. Now that it was awake, it wouldn't stay hidden for long. Some truths refuse to stay buried. And once they rise, they ripple outward, calling to those who've waited in shadows. Mira thought the danger was over. She didn't know it had only just begun. 3 days passed. Quiet ones. The girls went back to exploring, drawing maps of the underground vault on scraps of paper and whispering about secret powers. Mira, though, couldn't sleep. She reread the legal documents left behind by her uncle and realized how little she actually knew about the man who had vanished from the family for over 40 years. There were no pictures of him in the house, no personal belongings upstairs, just old repair tools, books on metallurgy, and a single journal written in a mix of English and a strange cipher. On the fourth morning, the quiet broke. A black SUV pulled up the driveway. The engine idled too long. The windows didn't roll down. Mira stood on the porch, shielding her daughters behind her as a tall man in a gray suit stepped out. He didn't smile. "Miss Dalton," he said, "my name is Arlen Case. I'm with the Federal Historical Asset Preservation Division." Mira raised an eyebrow. "That's not a real thing." "No," he replied smoothly. "It's not." He handed her a card. It had no name, no agency, just a number embossed in metallic blue ink. He looked past her shoulder toward the barn. "You've inherited something significant. We like access." "How do you even know about it?" she asked, tension rising. "The pulse," he said simply. "It's not just underground anymore." June stepped forward beside her. "He can't take it. It's ours." Arlen's gaze flicked to the girl. For a second, something in his eyes changed. Not cruelty, but fear. He took a full step back. "You activated it." Mira stepped between them. "Whatever you think is happening here, you need to leave. We don't want your help. Or your threats." Arlen didn't argue. He turned, got into the SUV, and left without another word. That night, Mira took her daughters into the vault again. She needed answers, fast. The tablet responded instantly to June's touch again. This time, it displayed a video log. Grainy footage. A ship crashing through Earth's atmosphere. It wasn't science fiction. It was real. A vessel from something called the Ether Dominion had landed on Earth in 1979, and her uncle had been the one to find it. He'd hidden its core systems underground, stored its remaining energy, and before disappearing, he had passed guardianship to his niece, Mira. Her name wasn't written in ink, but in genetic code. Lila asked, "Mom, are we in danger now?" Mira didn't answer immediately. She watched the feed zoom in on Earth again. This time, a blinking red marker appeared over their town. Then two more, slowly moving toward it. She swallowed hard. "Yes," she said, "I think we are." Some burdens don't shout. They whisper in the dark, gnawing at sleep, twisting every decision into a question mark. Mira had always carried the weight of motherhood alone. But this was different. This wasn't just survival. This was history, power, danger, and two little girls caught in the center of it. Mira stood at the window, watching the edge of the tree line where the headlights had vanished. The night outside was calm, too calm, but inside her mind a storm brewed. The vault, the strange man, the red blinking markers on that map. They weren't ready. She wasn't ready. Lila and June were asleep on the couch, curled under an old quilt, still clutching their sketchbooks full of constellations and strange machines they didn't understand. Mira sat beside them and whispered to herself, "What if I ruin everything by staying? What if I ruin them by leaving?" She had always prided herself on being practical. Food, shelter, school supplies, safety first. This was different. There was no manual for interstellar secrets buried under your floorboards. She quietly opened the journal her uncle had left behind. Most of it was unreadable, coded or just too fragmented, but one page was underlined in black ink. The core must never fall into wrong hands. If activated by a true heir, the signal will call others. Some may come to protect, others to conquer. The decision will rest on the one who hears the pulse and chooses not just with her blood, but with her heart. Her heart? She slammed the journal shut, frustration creeping in. Why hadn't he warned her? Why give her this place with no instructions, no allies, no explanation until it was too late? Suddenly, she heard the low hum again, but it wasn't coming from below. It was coming from outside. Mira grabbed a flashlight and stepped onto the porch. A wind swept across the fields, unnatural and dry, humming through the trees like distant static. A glowing mark had been burned into the center of the yard, a perfect spiral, still smoldering, not random. Not natural. A message. She ran inside and locked the doors. The next morning, Mira called a local handyman she trusted and told him she needed the barn sealed shut. Not repaired, sealed. Concrete, metal, the works. He asked questions. She offered triple his rate. He stopped asking. Then she packed bags of girls. Essentials only. Clothes. IDs. Sketchbooks. A strange device in the vault that pulsed when June touched it. She stood by the open trunk of her old station wagon, staring at the packed bags. They could run. But something in her, deeper than logic, resisted. Running meant staying afraid. Running meant giving this power over to people like Arlen Case. Running meant turning her back on something her family had guarded for decades, maybe longer. The girls ran outside, laughing about fireflies and starlight. And Mira knew they deserved more than escape. But that meant stepping into something far bigger than her, far bigger than Earth. She shut the trunk. They weren't running. Not yet. When fear wraps its hands around the throat of reason, it takes something extraordinary or deeply familiar to loosen its grip. And sometimes the smallest voices carry the loudest truth. The days that followed were quiet, but not calm. Mira triple-locked every door. She disconnected the landline, covered the vault entrance with an old rug, and pushed a heavy cabinet over it. She stopped sleeping again. Not fully, only enough to function. She didn't tell the girls everything, only that they might need to leave fast if anything strange happened again. Lila, always observant, didn't press. June, though, started sleeping with the glowing vault device under her pillow, like a child hugging a nightlight against the darkness. One afternoon, the girls were playing in the field behind the house, barefoot and wild, as if the world wasn't shifting beneath them. Mira sat on the porch, her eyes darting every few seconds to the tree lean, waiting, wondering. That's when she saw it. A drone, sleek, matte black, hovering above the grass like a silent predator. Not military standard. Smaller. Alien, maybe. Mira ran. Girls. Inside. Now. The drone shot skyward the moment she moved, disappearing behind clouds as fast as it had arrived. They ran indoors. Mira locked up. Her heart pounded. I saw it too, Lila said quietly, peeking through the curtains. It wasn't from here, was it? No, Mira replied. They sat in silence, all three huddled in the living room. The farmhouse creaked around them. Wind howled outside like something hunting. But then, as the light faded into evening, June did something odd. She walked to the center of the living room, holding the strange glowing device. She sat cross-legged and placed it gently in front of her. Her little fingers hovered over the surface like she'd done it 100 times before. June, Mira asked, cautious. Sure, she whispered. It's listening. The device pulsed. Once, twice, then a soft, golden light projected upward. Not a map this time, but an image. 3 figures, cloaked in silver, standing in a ring of starlight. Their faces were calm, unreadable. Not human, not entirely alien either. Then a voice, warm, deep, and strangely soothing, filled the room. To the one who awakens a seed, you are not alone. The vault is not just a key. It is a beacon. Others will come, but so will we. The light vanished. The device dimmed. Mira stared at her daughter. Did you know it would do that? June looked up, smiling faintly. I just felt it, like it wanted to help. Hope returned in a way Mira hadn't expected. Not through certainty, not through weapons or answers, but through that voice, that moment, that flicker of a connection across galaxies, promising they weren't forgotten. Maybe there was help out there. Maybe the inheritance wasn't a curse at all, but a calling. And maybe, just maybe, her daughters weren't afraid. So Mira decided, if help was coming, she would hold the line until it arrived. Some promises aren't spoken aloud. They live in glances, in silent oaths sealed between breaths. Mira didn't have all the answers, but she had something stronger, a reason to fight, and 2 small hearts worth everything. That night, Mira stayed awake long after the twins had fallen asleep. The farmhouse was quiet, the air still. She sat in the old rocking chair near the fireplace, the strange device resting in her lap, like an ember of truth still warm. She replayed the message in her mind. You are not alone. Others will come. It could mean anything. A rescue, a warning, a war. She didn't know who the others were, or if they were better or worse than the man in the gray suit. But for the first time, she felt something solid inside her, a line drawn. She wouldn't run. Not now. She walked into the kitchen and opened her uncle's journal again. Beneath the torn pages, she discovered something she hadn't noticed before. Tucked into the binding was a folded blueprint, not of the house, of the land, a detailed drawing of the area, with hand-sketched markers showing tunnels that extended far beyond the vault, defensive points, escape routes, energy lines, all designed decades ago. It wasn't just a hiding place. It was a stronghold. He had planned for this. At sunrise, Mira took the girls out back. She stood at the edge of the field and faced them with steady eyes. I need to tell you the truth, she said, voice low. All of it. She didn't sugarcoat it. She told them about the vault, the crashed ship, the stranger in the suit, the drone, about the message, about the possibility that more people or things were coming, good or bad. She didn't know. Then she said the one thing she hadn't dared say out loud until now. We may be the only ones who can protect what's down there. And I need you both to promise me that if something happens, you'll stay together. Lila nodded first, her eyes glassy but determined. We're not scared anymore, June whispered. They buried the blueprint in a steel box beneath the barn floor, just in case they were separated or forced out. They coded the hiding place in a riddle only the girls would understand, where the sunlight never lands and the birds never sing. They began preparing. Quietly, methodically, Mira mapped the property's exits, reinforced the cellar door, and installed hidden locks. The girls helped gather supplies and create hiding spots. What began as a dusty farmhouse was slowly transforming, not just into a home, but into a line of defense. That evening, the three of them sat on the porch, watching the stars blink into view. Do you think they're watching us now? Lila asked. Mira looked at the sky. I think they've always been watching. But this time we're ready. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew what she stood for, what she'd fight for, and who she'd protect with everything she had. Because sometimes a mother's promise is a shield. Joy doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it slips in quietly, through a crack in fear, through laughter born too close to tears. And sometimes, when everything feels like it'll fall apart, something beautiful takes root. Right in the middle of it all, the days grew colder. The wind carried an edge, and the trees began to shed their gold and red leaves like whispers of warning. The girls had turned the upstairs hallway into their own mission base, complete with walkie-talkies, coded notebooks, and scavenged flashlights taped together for double power. Mira watched them with a mix of worry and wonder. Children had a strange resilience, an ability to find color in a gray sky, to build magic out of broken things. She hadn't told them, but she'd seen 2 more drones in the past week. Always distant, always watching. She stopped going into town. The fewer people who knew they were here, the better. But today, something different happened. It started with music. Old, warm, and unexpected. A dusty radio in the barn, one that hadn't worked in years, suddenly crackled to life. A soft melody drifted out, full of static and age, but unmistakable. A lullaby, the very one Mira used to hum when the girls were babies. She stared at it. The power cord was still unplugged. Lila came running. It's from the vault, Mom. It's talking to us again. Together. They opened the hatch and climbed down into the glowing depths. The tablet sat dormant, but a panel in the far wall had opened, revealing a narrow chamber filled with soft blue light and something floating gently at its center. A seed. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Gentle, alive. Next to it, on a pedestal, was a box, small, curved, and covered in the same etchings as the gear June had found weeks ago. She picked it up. It hummed in her hand. And then, without warning, a warm breeze filled the chamber, like summer wrapped around her shoulders. And the air shimmered, showing a brief, flickering hologram. Her uncle. He looked younger than she remembered, his voice quiet and clear. If you're seeing this, Mira, it means you found the seed. I couldn't raise you. I couldn't protect the girls. But I could give you this, a second chance. For them. For all of us. Myra's hand trembled. The girls leaned close. The hologram faded, and the breeze disappeared. But the warmth stayed. They brought the box upstairs. That night, they opened it together and found a single item inside. A silver ring, cool to the touch, with 3 tiny glowing stones, one pink, one green, one clear, pulsing in rhythm. It didn't speak. It didn't move. But they felt it, connected. Lila slipped it onto Myra's finger. "It's a family ring," she said. Mira smiled. For the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. They didn't know how close the storm was. They didn't know how many eyes were watching. But in that moment, in that quiet house with music still humming from nowhere, joy bloomed like spring pushing through snow. And Mira let herself feel it. Just for a while. It's one thing to make a promise, another to keep it when the world begins to splinter. Strength isn't proven in calm. It's revealed in chaos, in the waiting, in the quiet crumbling of certainty. Winter arrived early, not with snow, but with silence, a kind that felt too thick, like the land itself was holding its breath. The humming from the vault changed. It came less often now, deeper, slower, as if the seed beneath their home had fallen into slumber again, or was waiting for something. Mira had begun marking each drone sighting on a calendar. The pattern was no longer random. They were circling, calculating. The girls noticed her tension. Even though she tried to hide it, they became quieter. June clutched the glowing device wherever she went. Lila started writing stories in her notebook. Tales of brave queens, secret technology, and a mother who never ran. Mira found them one morning and cried. Not out of sadness, but because she wasn't sure she could live up to the hero they believed she was. Then came the warning. Not from a vault, from the sky. One evening, a roar split the quiet, low, long, unnatural. The sky turned green for a second. A line of fire streaked across the clouds. Too fast to be a plane, too quiet to be a storm. They rushed outside, and above them they saw it, a ship, sleek, seamless, silent, not crashing, descending. It didn't land. It vanished just above the tree-line, leaving behind nothing but scorched air and the faint smell of ozone. Mira didn't sleep that night. She spent hours packing emergency bags again. She restocked the cellar with food and supplies. She reread her uncle's notes, searching for something she might have missed. A contingency, a command, a way out. But the pages only held the same words. Protect the seed. Trust the bloodline. By morning, frost kissed the windows. And something else arrived, a letter. No stamp, no envelope. Just a single piece of heavy parchment slipped through the door, written in perfect, looping script. The ether calls its own. You must choose where your loyalty lies. Air blood cannot remain hidden forever. Mira stared at it for a long time. Then she lit the wood stove and burned the paper to ash. That night, thunder rolled in, but no rain followed. A pressure filled the air like something pressing down on the roof of the world. Even the birds had gone quiet. June crawled into Myra's bed. They're coming, aren't they? Mira nodded. Yes. Will we be okay? She didn't answer right away. Then she held her daughter close and whispered, We'll be together. That's what matters. That's what always matters. Outside, the wind howled louder. Inside, the lights flickered. And the ring on Myra's finger, the one with 3 glowing stones, pulsed red for the first time. Endings aren't always sharp. Sometimes they slip in quietly, disguised as changes we didn't choose, or choices we can't avoid. But every ending, even the hardest one, leaves a doorway behind. And tonight, that door began to open. The night stretched long. The wind outside groaned against the farmhouse walls, but the real pressure came from within. The vault pulsed steadily now, no longer random, like it was counting down. The girls had stopped asking questions. They knew something was coming. Lila had packed her own emergency bag without being told. June had started drawing symbols she hadn't seen anywhere but inside the vault, and couldn't explain why she knew them. At 3:42 a.m., the ring on Myra's finger changed again. Not just a red pulse. Now the green stone lit up as well, blinking in a rhythmic sequence, as if it were signaling someone, or responding to a signal already sent. Mira grabbed the vault key, waking the girls gently. "We need to go down," she whispered. "Now." They entered the vault in silence, flashlight beams bouncing off the ancient metal walls. But before Mira could touch the tablet, the walls around them shifted. Plates slid away. Light surged in slow spirals. The seed, once gently glowing, now radiated with energy so intense it lit their faces in gold and white. A soft chime echoed across the chamber. Then a doorway appeared. Not physical, but light bending space into a perfect circle, hovering off the floor. It showed a sky, not Earth's, twin suns, pink grass, tall structures spiraling like trees made of glass. "Is that?" June whispered, her voice trembling. "I think it's another world," Mira replied. "A doorway." Above the light ring portal, words appeared in the same foreign script from the tablet. But this time, Mira could read them without trying. Ether passage confirmed, bloodline validated. "You may return." Return? Mira stared at the words. Not "you may visit." Not "you may explore." Return. Lila reached out and gripped Myra's sleeve. "Is this where we're from?" Mira shook her head slowly. "No, but maybe it's where we were meant to go." The portal shimmered, unstable, waiting. Then the house shook above them. Distant, heavy impacts, not thunder, not footsteps. Landing. Whatever had been circling them had arrived. Myra's breath caught. She looked at the girls. She thought about the promise she'd made. To protect them, to stay strong, to never let fear decide for them. But maybe this wasn't fear. Maybe this was the door her uncle had kept hidden, not just to protect the seed, but to save them. Mira held both girls' hands. And together, without another word, they stepped through the light. It wasn't cold. It wasn't strange. It felt like stepping out of storm into sun. And then the portal vanished behind them, just as the farmhouse above exploded in a flash of blue flame. Not all wars are fought with weapons. Some are fought within, between holding on and letting go, between the fear of loss and the cost of love. And sometimes, to protect what matters most, we must give away the very thing we were never prepared to lose. The new world was breathtaking. Skies the color of lavender dusk. Twin suns drifting slow across endless fields of silver grass. Floating structures, half organic, half mechanical, dotted the landscape, humming softly like they were alive. But none of it was peaceful. Not for Mira. As soon as they arrived, beings emerged, tall, robed figures with luminous skin and eyes like burning stars. They didn't speak with mouths. Their thoughts echoed in Myra's mind. You carry the seed. You carry the blood. They brought her and the girls into a chamber shaped like a spiral shell, walls glowing with living light. At the center stood a crystal structure, beating with a pulse identical to the device June had carried. A voice, deeper than sound, filled the space. The seed must merge with the core. The line must complete its cycle. Mira didn't understand until she saw the 3 stones on her ring light up again, each shining brilliantly, pulsing in perfect rhythm with the crystal. And then a chamber door opened. Inside was a mirrored field, a suspended space, timeless and silent, holding a memory. Her uncle, young, healthy, kneeling before a similar seed. His voice whispered, ghost-like, "One life must stay to awaken the planet. One must carry the line forward. The seed cannot survive without a tether." Myra's heart turned to stone. They hadn't been chosen to escape. They had been chosen to restore something ancient, something dying, and someone had to stay behind. She turned to the girls. "No," June said, instantly understanding. "No, you're not staying." Lila clutched her arm, her voice breaking. There has to be another way. But Mira knew, she always had, that feeling in her chest since the first hum in the cellar. The deep ache that this house, this mystery, it had always been hers to finish. "I won't let them take you," she whispered. "They're not taking me," Mira said softly. I'm giving, so you can live. The robed figure surrounded her now, forming a silent ring. No chains, no threats, just waiting, as if they knew the way of the moment and chose to honor it. Mira knelt before the seed. I have nothing left but this choice, she whispered, and I give it freely. She pressed her palm against the crystal. Light flooded her body, golden, blinding. Her memories surged, not just her own, but those of ancestors she never knew. A chain of protectors, all the way back to the first breach between earth and ether. Her body began to dissolve into light. Not death, not pain, but something greater. She turned to her daughters one last time. Be everything, she said. Be more than I was ever allowed to be. And then she was gone. Only the ring remained, glowing softly, resting in June's palm. Sometimes the end doesn't sound like silence. It sounds like a heartbeat continuing in someone else. And in that rhythm, the one left behind, we find not grief alone, but harmony born from love, loss, and the future waiting to unfold. The light faded slowly. June stood motionless, the ring still warm in her hand. Its 3 stones now perfectly still. No pulsing, no signal, just quiet. A hush had fallen over crystalline chamber, and for a moment, it felt like the world itself had paused in respect. Lila touched her sister's shoulder. She's not gone, she said quietly. She's part of it now. The robe being stepped back, bowing slightly, not in dominance, but in reverence. One of them approached and extended its hand, not toward the girls, but toward the ring. June clutched it tightly. No. The being's voice entered her mind gently. It belongs to you now. The legacy has passed. The seed lives because she chose to give. And now, you carry her voice. They were led to a tower near the valley's edge, crafted from woven metal and glass, breathing like it had a pulse of its own. Inside was a room filled with archives, maps, histories, star paths, and a display that showed Earth, still turning, still alive. It hadn't been destroyed when the portal closed. Instead, a beacon now hovered above the farmhouse ruins, a pillar of pure energy, invisible to most but active, radiating. Mira had not just protected the seed, she'd awakened it. A few days passed, or maybe weeks. Time moved differently in this place. The girls learned to communicate with the beings through thought. They weren't soldiers or captors. They were keepers, ancient caretakers of the ether lines, tasked with preserving the balance between worlds. And now, with Myra's sacrifice, balance had returned. One evening, as twin moons rose in the sky, June sat alone beneath a glowing tree that shimmered with silver fruit. She opened her sketchbook and began to draw again, not weapons or symbols, but a home, a memory, her mom's face, a porch, a laugh. Then a soft breeze wrapped around her shoulders, warm and gentle. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. She closed her eyes and whispered, I know you're here. The wind swirled to the leaves above, humming a tune she hadn't heard since Earth, her mother's hum, distant but clear. Lila sat beside her, holding the old vault device. We could go back someday, she said. Maybe, June replied. But we're not done here. Not yet. The seed had opened more than a portal. It had opened possibility, between worlds, between people, between past and future. The twins were no longer just Myra's daughters. They were the heirs of a legacy built in silence, sealed in sacrifice, and carried forward by courage. And as the stars above whispered to one another in slow, ancient light, a new story began, not of loss but becoming. The final harmony wasn't a sound. It was them, alive, and finally home.